Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Zal here from ZZZ Game Forum.
I'm Zera.
And we are joined here by the wonderful people who made Shadow Puppeteer, and we're going to have them introduce themselves to you right now.
My name is Marianne. I'm project manager and producer.
My name is Catharina Bohler. I am the CEO of the company.
All right, awesome. So do you guys want to tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background in game dev? How did you get into it? What inspired you to make video games? You can hold this.
Thank you. So I think for the both of us, video games were a big part of our childhood, and we've grown up with it. For my part, it was with the NES and playing games like Super Mario and all of that stuff. And it's followed me through my entire life. The game development, we founded Sarepta Studio 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And because we wanted to make games. Now, Catharina.
That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, we all went to the same school and studied game development in Norway. And the environment there is really great and really encourages you to start up your own company. So we got a lot of help in an incubator there. And so we just started working with companies and based of our love for games, that's kind of what drove us to do this also.
Awesome. And it's basically why we're also here, for our love for games. It's awesome. So we'll start this off with a really simple question. What was the inspiration behind the art style? Because it's a very unique looking game. It's very Tim Burton-y a little bit, that's what we were saying. So what was the how did you get this art style?
Well, when we started up with making the game, we were really fascinated by shadows and the connection you have there. And so the style just kind of grew from the feeling that, the shadows, it's a really dark, kind of mysterious thing, but at the same time, it's a really deep part of yourself. So it was really early on that we just kind of, we set this vision for the game, and that was that it was going to be gloomy, cartoony with a twist of weird. And so we just did some different design choices, and kind of by accident the kid just ended up without a mouth, and so we wanted to emphasize his other features so that we could properly tell the story without using any dialogue. So I think it's a lot of mix there between wanting it to be cute and quirky, but at the same time there's a lot of kind of darkness in there. So that's kind of what ended up creating the style.
Very cool.
Yeah, we're very heavily influenced by where we come from. We come from the Nordic region, and so half of the year it's really, really dark, and that influences us a lot.
It's not too sunny up there. Not too sunny.
Not at all. We get a bit of sun in the summer, of course.
Yeah. Well, we live in probably a place that's also like that. Ohio. Ohio doesn't get sun too much of the year. We have winter for 6 months, and then rain for 4 months. So we understand. We absolutely love your art style. It's so unique. Another question. Do you want to? Yeah, go ahead. You can take over.
And the next thing is a bit of what is the hardest technical obstacle that you guys faced in this process? It was probably pretty difficult in some rough patches in some places.
That's a very interesting question. Thank you for asking. So the biggest challenge for us was to figure out, I believe, or in my opinion, the shadow, because shadows are so strange and they don't have an obvious way they ought to be. So for us, we have a shadow, which is a 2D character moving along lit surfaces in a 3D space and having to interact with that. And also in the game, you are affected by different light sources. So if you approach a street light, you get pulled in. And so your gravity shifts to be in that light.
Wow.
So I think that was the biggest challenge for us, to get the shadow mechanics and physics to be right.
Okay, yeah.
And actually, one thing that was interesting with that is that we have kind of used formulas to make sure that the light should react properly. And so every single thing in our game does have initially dynamic shadows.
Okay.
So it's not that we're just drawing up and saying, oh, this is the areas where you should walk. They're the actual shadows cast by the game, by the environment. And we're using ray casting to make it, calculate and see where the landscape actually comes. So, I mean, initially the shadow would grow and shrink a lot, so we had to put in some restraints. But yeah, everything there kind of does act like it would, with some restrictions, of course. So the whole ray casting system is kind of a thing that the programmers have been working really hard on.
Yeah, I code, and like ray casting is one of the toughest things to get working, like the way that you would like it to. It's easy to kind of like set up, but then like get it to work the way you want, not too easy. Yeah, it's a completely different beast to tackle. But you guys have done it impressively, and the physics were awesome. I didn't see any like bugs. I didn't like run into bugs so far playing. So yeah, it seems like you guys got over that like technical obstacle very, very impressively. That was really good. So with the puzzles, how did you balance out the puzzles to work that in a way that both characters felt important? Because that's how we felt when we were both like playing. We felt like sometimes I had to like help him out, he had to help me out, so which was really a cool dynamic. So how did you balance that?
First and foremost, it was really important to us that we managed to balance the game so that exactly as you were describing, it's not just one doing all of the work and the other one just tagging along. You're both active and engaged and contributing to the progression of the story. Now you can tell it worked as we planned the levels to make this achievable.
Well, yeah, I mean, we did try to look at the game actually in different passes and just trying to think about, character A and character B as their own living beings, their own, they would be able to be in their game alone. And we've actually written a whole talk about this that we held at the Central European Game Conference, and hopefully we can do it at some other places too. But there's a lot of different steps that we've gone through to actually just make sure that the game feels, real for both characters. And I think for us it was also, actually a plus that we had two different dimensions. Because it's so much easier for instance, the shadow to notice things in the shadow world than it is for the 3D character. So that way you can put in hints that that the shadow person will see and not the person playing the boy. So doing that back and forth, trying to make sure that you can be synchronized at certain times, and at certain times you will go away from each other and try to come back. So there's a lot of thought put into this. But we do have also a blog post that you can check out where we do write some of this stuff down. But I hope that was well enough answered. It's a very complicated question.
Yeah. Answered it perfectly. Yeah, absolutely. Answered it really, really well. Next question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Next one. What inspired the story behind Shadow Puppeteers? It had to be something pretty dark and cartoony still, but still I saw the beginning cutscene and that looked pretty intense.
Yeah.
The story of Shadow Puppeteer is pretty intense. So as Catharina was saying just now, that the game was very heavily inspired by the idea of what would happen if our shadows actually came alive. And we kind of moved on to if there was a character and he experienced this, what would be the event that made it happen? And so we came up with the idea of a Shadow Puppeteer. And so what he does in the game is that he wakes all of the shadows, separates them from their owners, and then he steals them.
Oh, wow.
But the main character in his shadow, the boy in his shadow, main shadow, they managed to escape. So they are still there.
Okay, wow.
And this is also part of making sure that both characters feel equal. The story is actually not mostly about the boy in the shadow, it's actually about the Shadow Puppeteer.
Oh.
I mean, he's the main character that kind of has the biggest things happening to him. And of course, in our game, we wanted to keep things very minimalistic. So we don't necessarily, put all of this straight into your face and tell you this is what it is. But there's actually quite a lot of deep thought and stories behind the Shadow Puppeteer character. And it's actually a little bit a story about loneliness. So, but yeah, don't want to spoil it too much. But yeah, so I think the biggest, we started with thinking about the boy in the shadow, but then when we wanted to try and find a start and an origin, we actually started with the origin of the Shadow Puppeteer. So he was the one that spurred this to happen.
People have responded really well. We have received 2 nominations for the story alone.
Wow, good.
Which is a great confirmation for us since we have a game without dialogue. So.
Yeah, I didn't notice. Yeah, I didn't see any talking going on.
I'm glad you guys got validated for that story, though. I'm glad it's getting the credit it deserves.
Yeah, as it well should, as it should. So the Shadow Puppeteer is kind of like the main villain and the main character at the same time. Is that not to spoil too much? Is that kind of how it is? Okay, that's pretty cool. So if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, so when you started doing this entire project, what would that piece of advice be?
Don't always listen to the programmer when he wants to make something from scratch. Use Unity, for God's sakes. Just use Unity. Yeah. I think we wasted about 1.5 years on starting an XNA, and
XNA is awful.
because the programmer, and I mean, he meant well, but he felt like, oh no, this Unity thing, I don't trust it. I want to do it myself. And
yeah, of course he meant well, but
but yes. So do not make your own engine.
Yeah,
just don't do it.
Yeah. Use Unity. Yeah, it's a very good piece of advice, because as a coder myself, just the concept of making your own game engine and having to do the physics and the graphics and the shadows and everything like that, it's just way too much, and it would take a lot of years. Like an engine takes years to make, and we, as an indie dev, you just don't have that kind of time. It would be a big waste of money. You'd have to focus more on making the video game rather than making the engine, which is a good, good piece of advice. What about you? Is there anything you would like to tell tell to your past self? Yeah.
Well, I completely agree with Catharina. That is the main advice. I would also say that the 80-20 rule is real.
80-20, what's that?
Okay, so it's a theory, and it applies to other things beyond game development also, that the first 80% of a completion of a project takes 20% of your time, whereas the last 20% takes up 80% of the time. So final polishing always takes so much more time and resources than you ever imagine, but it is really necessary.
Absolutely. We expect it. Yeah, you can't just ship out a game that's, half full of bugs, and the graphics cut everywhere. But so far, this game, like I said, I haven't run into a single bug. It looks impressive so far. Very, very good. Very well done. I think we have one more. I think we have one more. I think that's it. So where can we buy this game right now? Is it out? Is the game out?
The game is out on Steam and on the Nintendo eShop for Wii-U.
Okay.
So you can buy it already today.
You can buy it today.
And if you want to follow us, you can go to www.shadowpuppeteer.com. We have an interesting development blog where we post news, and also we tell a bit about the development process, tell you about what we've been thinking when we made this game. And we're also on Twitter and Facebook.
Awesome. Well, all right. So that was the interview. Thank you so much. Marianne, Catharina.
Yeah, thank you guys.
That was
very insightful into the process.
Yeah, very insightful. This game, like we said, is very fun. Like you just heard them say, you can get this game today on Steam and on the Nintendo eStore for Wii U. So definitely pick it up. It's an amazing game. Unique couch multiplayer is back, and it's great, and definitely highly recommended.
Yep. Save the living room.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you guys again. Thank you so much.
Very much.